A pathless wilderness, wild, rugged, that was South Dakota. A hardy frontier, far from the paths of civilization.
Why die on Mars when you can live in South Dakota?
Where fortune beckoned with a glittering smile.
I was hauling pigs on the interstate. You were in a red car having a problem with your shirt.
And life hung on the quickness of a trigger finger.
Podcast Palooza.
The Sioux Empire Podcast.
Sioux Empire Podcast 132, Podcast in a Box, with Jordan Van Maanen.
A pathless wilderness, wild, rugged, that was South Dakota. A hardy frontier, far from the paths of civilization.
Why die on Mars when you can live in South Dakota?
Where fortune beckoned with a glittering smile.
I was hauling pigs on the interstate. You were in a red car having a problem with your shirt.
And life hung on the quickness of a trigger finger.
Podcast Palooza. I thought you were going to say something.
The Sioux Empire Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of the Sioux Empire Podcast. This is the Sioux Empire Podcast, the quirky but harmless blog and podcast that's all about Sioux Empire news, comedy, music, and culture. I am your host, Robert Mailing, and joining me, as always, is tail gunner Seth Glover.
If you're listening to this, you've made it to the second week of 2019. Congratulations!
You're alive! Yay! Also joining us here is Jordan Van
Maanen.
Maanen, damn it! we practiced this.
You must have had sinks on the mind, or what was going on there?
Well, apparently I thought this Monin was how I wrote it out. I didn't even write it phonically right. So anyway, I'm gonna go, hang my head in shame, and I'm gonna go cry. Actually, I'm gonna leave the studio. I'm gonna go cry for about 5 minutes in the bathroom with the door shut, while Seth talks about video games in his exciting new 2019 segment called Game On, or no, it's Game Time. Yes, I'm really. I made it to the second week, but just barely,
doing
Seth.
So good with words written down.
Me word good, Seth. Me
love it.
Me word good.
I love it. Everybody, it's game time! Thanks for coming to the new 2019 Sioux Empire segment, presented by the Sioux Empire. This week, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite games of all time, or at least the game franchise is Zelda. Big shout out to my family that got me a Switch and the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for Christmas. There hasn't been a good Christmas gift like this since 2000, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, not something that's really lit my fire. Full disclosure, I'm a huge Zelda fan. I've played most of them. I didn't finish the one on the NES, but Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, I've played all of them, loved all of them, and I can say that Breath of the Wild takes all of that good stuff from all of those other games.
Damn it, you're going to make me want to buy a Switch by the end of this, aren't you?
And it puts it in this game. So, I haven't completed the game yet. I think I'm about 50 hours in or something. I got it, opened it New Year's Eve, and played it immediately for the next 8 hours, and then I had to go home from work. No. But,
good to know.
Yeah. The world in this game is extremely huge. It takes hours to get from one area to the next. Luckily, there is a fast travel feature in the game, which, they've had in other games. So, they're bringing that. You're going to see some of the same bad guys. Of course, your ultimate villain is, in this game, Calamity Ganon. And the story centers around, obviously, you're Link. You've awoken. You are the hero of time. And 100 years ago, some shit went down, and so you had to go sleep. And then you woke up 100 years later. Now it's time to kick some ass. Take a little nap, kick some ass.
Little 100-year nap.
Little 100-year nap, classic for heroes. But I've completed one of the temples. I've completed the Zora's Domain temple, and that one was a lot of fun. It's a really easy first temple, like they generally do in Zelda games. So it's it was nice because there's a whole slew of different abilities that you can use with Link now. You can move metal items, you can freeze water to create pillars, you can, obviously produce bombs, which is kind of nice in this game, that bomb is a special ability and not something that you have to carry or worry about finding more bombs or buying more bombs. So
I don't know how to read into that. So what is the bomb? Is it like...
So you start out, it's lovely. I fucking love how Zelda ties in Nintendo to their games. You'll remember in Ocarina of Time that there were pictures of Mario and Yoshi and stuff like that up in the castle. Well, this one, Link's one of his primary tools is a Switch. Let's be real about it, guys. They call it a Sheikah Slate. But on your hip...
You're saying it's a little meta.
Yeah, absolutely. There's... It's taking account of the outside world, and it's not just in its own world, even though it's such a large world that it could be. So that's where you get the powers of those bombs, stasis, the special abilities. It's from the Sheikah Slate, which is a really, really fun addition to all of the other fun things that Zelda has in it. Right now, I just completed the Gerudo... I am about to tackle that temple in the Gerudo Desert. I just beat the clan leader, the Yagi clan leader, I believe it is. It's a clan that was, it's new in this game, but they formed to, they pledged allegiance to Ganon and are in, they're at ends with Link. Their main objective is to kill the hero of time because that's Ganon's wish. Another great thing about the game is climbing. Weird, but it is so goddamn enjoyable to be climbing the side of a cliff and you've got a stamina bar, so you can't climb forever. So there is that little bit of
realism.
Am I gonna make it? Sort of funness, and there's nothing more satisfying than jumping up to the ledge with your last sliver of stamina. You have a stable of horses now. You catch your horse. It's a wild horse. You have to sneak up on it, jump on it, soothe it, and then you can take it and register it at a stable. And then you can, go to any stable in the world, on the world map, and get that horse.
Fast travel, basically. Or no, it's not fast travel. You have access to that stable wherever you're at.
Exactly. You have access to up to 5 horses at any stable. So if you left the horse and it got stuck on a mountain, you can go to a stable, recall it, it's with you.
Okay.
Yeah, you get to name them.
So you can bail on your horse and then just summon them back, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. Leave it, just do whatever. They can be used as weapons, just like back in Ocarina of Time. You can run into enemies and kill them with your horse. And there's so much stuff to know about Zelda that it is useful to watch YouTube videos on things that they don't teach you in the game. I have been doing that a lot, and so that's been really fun learning about all the little things that you don't necessarily aren't pointed out in the game. And that's a lot of things like strategy more than anything, just how to take on enemies when you don't necessarily have the best equipment or all the hearts and whatnot. Classic Zelda, it's open-ended, so you can wander around. You can wander into areas that you have no business being in, as a with just a few hearts. Haven't finished it yet, but absolutely love it. If you have a Switch, you need this game. If you've never played a Zelda game, please play this game. It's got a lot of, and with Zelda stories, it's got a lot of good messages. There's the interactions, this short stories, short quests, or the short quests that you do. There's usually some good interaction with people, and it's the goal is to help other people. So I think growing up playing Ocarina of Time kind of taught me some heroism and how to be kind of courageous and a good person. So I hope that the younger kids are going to play this game and pay attention and love it as much as I've loved the other Zelda games and love this one. So that's game time, baby.
Joining us this week is Jordan with Consultants in a Box. Jordan, I didn't know much about Consultants in a Box and this new project coming up until you contacted me about wanting to be on the podcast, which, by the way, if you want to be on the podcast, that's the way to do it, is just say, hey, can I be on the podcast? And usually I'll be like, okay. So, yeah, hop on that gravy train. Anyway, Consultants in a Box, why don't you tell us a little bit about... Well, first off, let's tell us a little bit about you. What's going on in your life? Well, who are you, young man?
Yeah, so, I'm young, but I'm from Watertown. Came here about 7 years ago, went to DSU for business education, graduated, got a job in the wireless industry with Sprint, then went to Verizon for a while, and then spent 4.5 years with Samsung as a territory rep. So really enjoyed that my time there. It was a very interesting company to work with. Very good experience came from that. Had some aspirations of starting my own business. Bought a moving business while doing that at the same time, which, that's not advised to buy a business and work full time at the same time to that extent, especially as a mover. So did that for a while and sold that business to the manager who was running it at the time. Had the opportunity about 7 months later to pursue opening T-Mobile stores when T-Mobile put the 4G towers in South Dakota. Back in 2014, I just went to their website and simply asked, hey, could I open a store for you? It's an industry that I've really enjoyed growing up in, and I had that chance to do that. So I went and opened up these 3 stores in Minnesota. And interesting business model, a little bit different than how the other stores run. Hard to make, a good, decent income, and, kind of got pushed out, which is okay. I'm all right with that. So I came back home, and, really what my passion and all that has been is just being able to discover new software, discover new business processes, learn about businesses. That's what I really enjoyed the most. And that led me to consulting. That it's always been in my mind too, that I would use, my T-Mobile stores to sell a few other products here and there, but didn't really have an avenue to market that. And that came over the last 2 or 3 months mainly I didn't have a brand, nothing to call it, so it didn't really have a way to market it. So I just waited on it until I finally had an idea for a name, and then that Consultants in a Box URL was available. I like URLs and businesses that really just tell people exactly what they do. And I really wanted to, and it fits my mindset because my business is about having a one-stop shop for a lot of different business tools that a business owner would need. Because when I was a business owner as a moving business, one of the things I had to look into was fleet management software, and where to find that. And the struggle was I couldn't get demos from the companies. I couldn't get a trial run on it. And I had a lot of very specific needs, and I just did not get the answers that I wanted, and ended up getting software that in the end didn't work. So now I'm stuck in this contract that I don't even want and have to go look for more software, and I'm paying twice as much now than what I could have had it just gone right the first time. So that's really why I'm here and why I'm doing this, is to help those businesses that, their focus is their business, not the software. If it's going to be a pizza place, their focus is selling pizza.
Yeah.
Not trying to figure out what point of sale software they need to sell the pizza.
Yeah, especially with entrepreneurs where they're like, oh, you're really good at, using your example, making pizza, you should run a pizzeria, which is not at all how business works, because it's like maybe you enjoy the actual making the pizza part. It's like you want to guarantee that you're never going to get to make pizza again, start a pizza business. It runs that way with podcasting. It can even be that way with farming sometimes. Just there's a lot of mental and fiscal overhead from launching a business that a lot of people don't consider when they're looking at it.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about, but before we move into get that deep dive, this catches my attention because we were just talking about baby names on the previous episode here. I see you just had a child.
We're going to. So we're not quite there yet. We'll find out the gender in a couple weeks. And we were settling on the name Oliver for a boy.
Oh, wow.
And we did not know that was the number one name for this prior year. We just liked the name. We didn't get it from anything. It's a good name.
So, but we had this I won't bore the listeners because we had this exact conversation in the first round on this. But why did you choose Oliver? And if you end up going with that, will you call them Ollie for short?
We were going to go with Oli because
everybody knows Oli.
Yeah, everybody knows Oli, don't you know? And my wife's sister just had a baby, and their last name is Swenson. So I just call their kids Sven, for fun. So now we're going to have their cousins.
You're completing the set.
Yeah, we have to.
That's pretty dope. That's not a bad idea. I like it.
That is awesome. Very, very nice. Sorry, I saw that note.
Your reasoning blows the water out of all those other. I don't think there's.
We spent 5 minutes talking about that exact name in the last episode, so that's why I had to tie it back there. That's awesome. But no, and an angle I did not expect on that. Well played, sir.
Yes.
Let's see. So you've talked a little bit about your background and why you'd be qualified on doing this. So. We talked about the overhead of starting a business, both resources, time, mental energy, things like that. What exactly would you do, hypothetically, to help a business or help an entrepreneur make that leap? What specifically do you do for them as far as that goes?
So I give away my time for free. And I have products that I sell myself. I have about 17 different software platforms that I've reached out, and they have partnership programs where they can pay me residual income for promoting their products. And that's not necessarily my intention. Of course, in any business, you need to make money, and thankfully I found a way to monetize something that I really enjoy. But if there's a solution out there, and it's my goal to go and find that solution, reach out to that service provider. Hopefully they're able to pay me through a partnership program, and if not, that's okay. In the end, I find the exact need for that business owner, and they didn't have to pay for my time, and they got an expert, in software.
Nice.
So my idea is kind of more like, Microsoft Word and the little clip art the little paper clip.
Clippy.
Hey, I see you're starting to do this. Can I help you? That's my mindset in that.
I see you're typing a poorly worded, a drunken letter to your ex-girlfriend at 2 a.m. Do you need help with that? No, sorry.
Exactly. So that's really my focus is to work with those business owners to find something on my time and not their time.
Let's see. One question I do have. So, with putting the consultants in the box, why did you put them in a box, and who's going to let them out?
It's a good question. I just, I needed to retain them.
And there are air holes, I assume, in the box?
Yeah, there's holes in the box, but not in the solutions.
Well played, sir. Well played.
Nice.
So let's see. So speaking of, giving you crap a little bit about the name, where did that name come from specifically?
Well, I wanted to have, obviously I wanted people to know I was a consultant, and I wanted to somehow portray the fact that I consult in a lot of different areas. So when you think of jack of all trades, and then having solutions, I have all my solutions all in one box or a box of tools, and that's specifically where it came from. And then I was surprised that the URL was available. Figured someone probably would have taken that already, but I guess not.
Nice. Yeah, it's amazing sometimes the URLs that you find out there, like the Sioux Empire. Nobody thought of that before me? Really? It's like,
some news network didn't have it.
Yep. Let's see. So, I have some information here. What insights can you give about your work with Samsung and T-Mobile as a store owner that our listeners would find interesting?
So Samsung was, it's such a beast. They're the largest company in the world, and you don't even realize where they have their hands in. They sell ships, cranes, granite.
They basically are South Korea.
They basically are South Korea. Exactly. They're the world. They build the Burke and the Arab Emirates. That was built by Samsung.
Jeez.
Wow.
They have an insurance company that is their own. They own their own baseball team. In South Korea. They just have a lot of stuff going on that you would have no clue. You look at your TV on the wall and you're like, I got a Samsung TV in this, but you've got Samsung everywhere else, and with their components being and everything. That was one interesting thing. The other thing that was interesting when we were there, there was always different marching orders that would come from Korea that would be completely different from what we were spoken to for U.S. corporate orders. So it was constantly switching and constantly doing different things. You remember that scene in Forgetting Sarah Marshall where Paul Rudd is teaching how to surfboard? I forgot who the other actor was in that movie, but it was you got to do this. No. Oh, no, now do this. No, that's what it was like, sometimes working in that environment. And the culture in a lot of Asian countries is just to work to your death. Just don't stop working. I had a coworker who they got a lot of, since was in the Minneapolis area or district, they had a lot of Korean people that would come to Minneapolis, and they would ride along with the reps in the Minneapolis area because of Target and Best Buy and some of those corporate accounts.
Yeah.
And my one coworker, he'd still maintain friendships with some of those Korean dispatchers that came over, and they would go back to Korea and he'd still talk to them. But he got this picture once of the Korean dispatcher that he was with. He'd send him a picture of his boss sitting at his desk with his boss sitting at his desk and the clock in the background, and it was 2 a.m. They weren't doing anything, but they were not leaving because their boss didn't leave. And their boss didn't leave. So that was the culture, was to not leave until your boss leaves work.
It's very similar to Japan then with the...
oh, yeah.
I've read that before where literally it's they might not have anything to do and might... it's more of a cultural thing. It's just I don't actually have anything to do at this desk, but I'm not going to be the first one to leave. And well, I'm not going to be the first one to leave. And then that mentality through a whole building.
Yeah. So That was interesting. I was still there when the whole like note explosion thing was going on. So that was interesting because we'd be, just going about our day, and then we'd get pictures on our group chat that would be like, guys, I had a phone explode at one of my stores. Oh, okay. Probably just a one-time thing, and then it was like, hey, I just got a phone exploded too.
Hey, exploding Samsung Note is trending.
So do you know what the actual like root issue was? Was it just like the battery manufacturer? Yeah.
One of them was like just a kind of like a cable that connected the battery to like the motherboard of the phone. That was part of it, and then the other manufacturer, one of them was Samsung's internal battery manufacturer that was, private labeled, not necessarily labeled Samsung, and then there was a bad cell and another batch of batteries, basically.
Oh, okay.
So, two completely random, two different issues, not the same. A lot of people think it was, it was the same issue, they never fixed it. No, it was two separate issues.
Wow.
Yeah, lithium ion technology, for those of you who are history nerds, it's like there was a reason for a long time no one adopted that as battery technology. It's so common in cell phones now. But it's because they've had the technology since like the 70s, but they were like notoriously unstable and not considered like safe and reliable to like operate. So it's like then in the 90s, late 90s, the tech got better and a little better, and then finally that kind of became the standard. But it's like underneath all the like gloss and the shininess, it's like the principles of what drives a lithium ion battery are, you are taking all of that potential energy and putting it into a little box, and it's like sometimes it doesn't hold.
Interesting.
And then, probably the last thing that I thought was really interesting is, we'd go to our national conferences, and then they'd give us the phones about a month early before they were even announced, which is kind of crazy if they're trying to keep things under wraps. But of course, you see the leaks online all the time. But there's people that were so dumb, they would just post stuff as soon as they got it, and they'd be fired at the conference a lot of times because they posted stuff online. And then they'd give us, the phones in like these little black bags, and if we had to go through the airport and if you had to get screened for whatever reason for your like toothpaste or whatever, you had to like request a special screening, and it's like, so that way the phone wouldn't be publicly shown. It was just like this unnecessary secretism behind, us having the phones a whole month early. So it was a really cool month though, because I know I'm one of like 10 people or, whatever. I'm the only person in South Dakota that has this phone for a month.
Right.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I'm like king of the world. I go around to all the stores and be like, check it out, guys. And then after it launches, whatever again.
Yeah. But for that month, you're king of the world.
I'm king of the world.
Very nice.
Was like T-Mobile is T-Mobile based out? Where are they based out of? Like, where did you get your merch?
T-Mobile's based out of Bellevue, Washington.
Okay, Seattle.
Yeah, and then my stores are up in Moorhead and in Baxter, Minnesota.
Okay.
So
it's not exactly the same as you're getting contradictory orders or anything like that, like you got with Samsung.
No, T-Mobile was very, very consistent. In fact, they're so consistent. T-Mobile owns all their phone inventory and their accessory inventory in all their stores, and all the stores have to be exactly the same. It's unlike the stores here where, Wireless World sell only all those, dealer-run stores. They don't own their phones. They own their phones. They own their accessories. They get them from distributors who, however they want to get them, and they can put their own prices on them, and that's how they make their money. And I couldn't do that at T-Mobile. They controlled the cost, so I was really just a glorified commission sales rep. So
interesting.
Yeah.
But I suppose it'd be a little bit. Maybe that's a little bit easier if you're going to be taking ownership of it to at least have...
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, the backing of a steady company.
It was way easier to just get it going because they just managed everything. So the cost to actually build the stores was a whole lot less because T-Mobile paid for, basically the whole construction of the store. So it was a lot easier to just jump into and do.
So in a way, what you're doing now... is somewhat, you didn't have it completely done for you, but T-Mobile kind of showed you, like, you know, this can be success, or, you know, starting a business can be a package, and you don't need to, you know, go crazy and, like, you know, have answers from all different directions. This is what you need. This is what you know, as a base, and that's kind of what you're trying to do for just, you know, people starting any business.
So, like, for instance, one of the products I'd partner with is the Square Reader, you know? So I can resell Square and, you know, a few other credit card processing and type deals, but they all have systems in place, you know, and customer service in place, so I don't have to be the, you know, the front man for everything. You know, I have a support team with all these major companies that I work with that can support all my customers. And that was the one thing I liked about T-Mobile too, and, you know, Samsung is just having, you know, another company to manage everything, as opposed to owning my business as a moving business. Is I had everything, you know, and with T-Mobile, I didn't even have to submit sales tax because they paid me a commission, so all I needed to do at the end of the year was just submit income tax. That was it, you know.
And so do you think, like, with the people that you help starting businesses, the biggest issue is just, I mean, is it just, like, not knowing what you don't know?
Yes, that's exactly it. One of my favorite quotes is from Steve Jobs, actually, even though I'm really just infuriated with the company because they're just overpriced products. But, you know, and I gotta say that with being a Samsung rep for 4.5 years, you can't really just bow down to Apple. But he also says, what do people don't know what they like if they haven't seen it yet. You know, so that's a lot of the things. Is like, I've been so engrossed in this industry of software and apps for the longest time that I've discovered a lot of different applications, and I remember what those applications do even after just, you know, viewing a website for 15 minutes. I would always remember, like, oh, I've got a solution for you. You know, there was an instance where I had a customer that I worked with, and I remembered an application that I discovered 3 years ago that I had only downloaded for 5-10 minutes 3 years ago just to look at to see what it was, and then deleted it off my phone, and I just happened to remember it. So yeah, it's exactly right. It's just finding them solutions that they didn't even think about.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Definitely necessary. We talk to a lot of accomplished entrepreneurs, not so much, you know, people just getting into it, and that's when we talk to them. You know, it's the ones that really worked for it. They'll have story just like you of what I didn't even see it coming. You know, that I needed this. Just like your fleet management software. I mean, you know, yeah, you got a business, moving business, but oh yeah, now I need to track these trucks and need to keep, you know, need to make sure my drivers aren't driving crazy, and, you know, need to, you know, all that stuff. And
well, and to think about the future technologies that they're not thinking of, you know, which when I look at the technology like 5G and that being really important and what that's going to do to people's businesses locally, I mean, 5G is probably one of my favorite technologies because of what technologies are going to come because of that. And people think, oh, I just get faster internet, but that's not the case. It's the response time between connecting whatever you have that's connected to what you're connecting to. So when you're talking about a communication standpoint, that's self-driving cars. That's more robotics, you know. So, you know, for someone who has, you know, like Boss's Pizza, for instance, they've got their delivery vehicles and their delivery drivers. Well, you know, if automation is going to come, who's going to do that? You know, who's going to, you know, or, you know, I actually created my own dispatch system for fun. You know, I used some existing software out there to create an online ordering system that would go to a dispatch system. So I could create a Bite Squad or a Food Dudes type company if I wanted to, because there's existing software out there to do it. You know, and now, you know, one of my ultimate goals is, you know, I have an understanding of how much money those services take from the restaurant owners. And it kind of irks me because they can make their money without doing that. And I think it'd be great to create a cooperative of delivery drivers for the restaurant owners, so the owners actually own the delivery service and then work with each other to get their food out the door.
I like that idea.
So, and all I have to do is find, you know, those people who want to drive, and then the drivers get paid more too.
Yeah.
'Cause in that business, the drivers don't make anything for those gig type service. They do if they work for like Domino's and some of these bigger companies that pay their drivers at $6.50 an hour plus mileage, and then they get their tips, and you can make really good money being a driver for Domino's. So
yeah, I had a friend that worked for one of those third-party delivery services, and I mean, the deliveries are, for him, it seemed like they're few and far between, so he didn't go on that many anyway. But he also, said that he wasn't getting enough money really to do it.
When you talk about the wear and tear in your car, and you're spending money on gas, and then when it comes down to it, I mean, you're done. You're almost losing money.
Exactly.
And I've been paying. I'm not a Lyft driver anymore, but I'm still on the Lyft driver Facebook page, and they're timing out cars now in Sioux Falls because Sioux Falls specifically has an ordinance for the age of a Lyft vehicle. So now these drivers are having to buy a new vehicle just to keep their job. So when you factor that into it, you're really not making a lot of money.
Yeah, my fiance just started driving for Lyft, and then we were looking at it because I have an older car, and I knew there was some requirements for the car year, and it's 2004 is what she found. I didn't see it myself, but because I drive a 2000, and so I knew I was excluded regardless. But she has a newer car, and she likes that a lot. It's the freedom of it is nice, but it works for her, and it's it is nice that there's opportunities like that. I still, and I don't care honestly why we didn't have Uber, but now we have Lyft, but it's better than working for one of those third-party food deliveries, for sure. But that'd be really cool to see a home brew in Sioux Falls delivery service. The way you make it sound, it sounds really, really, really like a really good idea.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be a specific branded service. It would just be a way for all these restaurant owners to keep their delivery drivers, because I'm sure, especially with a delivery job, I know the turnover is so high, because entry-level job and people are doing it just to get by, and but for something like this, now they can pay their delivery drivers a little more. They don't necessarily have to worry about not having enough deliveries to sustain their business, to pay a specific driver to do it. So it's going to help them scale properly. And that's kind of my biggest, Now, whether these businesses agree with that and want to work together, I guess we'll see.
I was going to say that could be a little bit
that's
like
the hard
herding
part,
cats.
certainly.
Yeah.
Which it sucks because it's, you get into the whole game theory, Nash equilibrium thing where it's if you'd all just work together, you could totally run the board, but you won't.
Right. Yeah, I think of it as a farmer's co-op. They've got something that they just should work together on it, because it just makes more sense when you're being more efficient if you're having a bunch of orders. Because the biggest drain on resources is an inactivity of your time. So.
And that's interesting what you're saying about your favorite technology, or one of your favorite technologies, 5G, that I didn't consider is that wireless communication. I'm sure that the way that they do it now for wireless or remote surgeries are just done through fiber, but with 5G, there's definitely more opportunity to have that as a reliable source of connection for remote surgeries and crazy stuff like that. Future, the science, man.
Well, it's so well. I mean, you could take that. Who knows? You could take a robotics, surgery, and you could have that put into an ambulance. So now that ambulance goes out, and it's well, we need a doctor to do this now. He's got this artery that's completely severed, and we can't put it back in. He's gonna die before we get to the hospital. Well, now because of 5G and the speed and the connection, they could do that remotely, sitting in the back of an ambulance. I have no idea how
big those robots are.
So many possibilities. That
it's huge.
It opens up.
And the other thing too is it's kind of scary to see what's going to happen with that, because you realize that once 5G and all these automated vehicles are coming, is your truck drivers are gone, no more jobs for them. Your fast food employees are going to be gone because they've got robots that are starting to be able to cook the foods, and when that speed increases, it's interesting. Walmart's piloting a robot that actually is putting products on the shelf. So you're almost to the point now where your consumer, process from factory to finish is almost being done 100% by robots.
It's scary. It's a question of what will those, workers do, but then it's also a question of what is this country going to do for those people. Honestly, I'm sorry that, I'm taking that, but, for displaced workers, they have programs, at least in South Dakota, that you can go back to school. Say you hurt your back, you're a carpenter, you can go back to school and go for, IT, and that will be, the state will help you. Because I honestly don't think those jobs are fulfilling anyway. And so I think that people could be doing, might be able to find something that's more fulfilling.
You would hope, and you would hope that someone would develop the skills to be able to do that. And I think of my wife's a software engineer. I can never do what she does. But if somehow my job got eliminated, I don't know what I would want to do, in a sense. But I guess you'll see how things change when I think about my 4 and 6-year-old right now and what they're going to be learning to go in school. And it's I hope we're teaching coding classes, and I hope we're doing all these things that are going to make our kids adapt to what the world is going to be in 20 years. Absolutely. Not what it's going to be just in the next 10.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The futurist in me really, really wonders about a universal basic income or something like that, some kind of mechanism like that, just because the whole point of automation was that it's supposed to make our lives easier. I mean, it's the 40-hour work week was not this magic set in stone thing. It was labor movements in the early 20th century started off with we want to not work 80 hours a week. We want to not work 60 hours a week. And then they got to 40, and then we had the Depression and World War II, and it's just kind of 40 is kind of where it got stuck. But, I mean, they didn't think it would be that way. In the 50s, if you look at all their articles and talking about the future, it's in the future you'll only work 3 hours a week. And if even the Jetsons made in the 60s, George Jetson works an hour a day or something like that, and all he does is push a giant button at Spacely Sprockets. That's what they thought it was going to be by now, And obviously not exactly the most realistic forecasting and expectations, but by the same token, the spirit of that you're going to go, it's automation shouldn't be the enemy. We just need to figure out how to get our civilization to align with the technology that we're dealing with. But yeah, sorry, rabbit hole.
No, that's
you get me started on 5G. One other thing I want to talk, since you're somebody who probably understands 5G technology a little bit, would you say that's a fair assessment? Over the Christmas and New Year's, there was a thread on Facebook that just went, did you see this thing?
Maybe.
It was one from Teresa Steele that went on and on and on about, and it was just nothing but older folks here in Sioux Falls who are scared to death that 5G is going to cook their brains and make them sterile, and every kind of conspiracy, every conspiracy theory you could think of was coming out of the woodwork on this one. And yeah, it's
what's really funny is the 5G is nothing more than a radio.
I know.
Yeah,
that's it. The radio waves are unchanged. And I don't know specifically how this new 5G radio is really any different from the other ones, besides of how they've gotten it to work. But your cell phone signals, when you look at the frequencies, your 700 and 600 megahertz, it's the same as the frequencies on your radio. When you go to 104.7 or 96.5 or whatever, those are frequencies. So your cell phone, if it had a 104.7 frequency, it could, in theory, connect to your radio. That's all it is. So yeah, there's nothing, that people need to be worried about, which obviously the masses in the end probably figured that out, that there's nothing to be worried about.
Yeah.
There's like 4 fucking fields that we know about, people. The Higgs, the electromagnetic, gravity, and then there's a 4th one that I can't think of right now. But all I'm trying to say is radio waves are radio waves are radio waves.
Well, yeah, I posted an article that was like, it was basically wasn't even an article. It was just kind of a, hey, what do you guys think of this? That's on a board that's nothing but electrical engineers who help build 5G systems and, like service cellular systems and electrical engineering systems and stuff like that. And, they're all just having a laugh about it, just like going crazy because it's just like, it's so dumb. They're like, it's like, you realize it's like we've been using the electric blankets for almost 100 years, and wrapping yourself in one of those and plugging it in is like bathing you in so many more radio waves and radio frequency stuff than 5G will ever do. And then one guy was pointing out, it's like, well, it's stupid to think that it's harming you, but even if you believed that, 5G makes towers directional instead of 4G, which makes them omnidirectional. So technically, you're probably getting exposed to less radio waves
I didn't know that.
by using a 5G. I didn't know that either, but the engineer was talking about it. It's like, yeah, it's like all the booster towers and stuff like that for 5G, they're all directional, and that's part of how they can penetrate different like substrates and stuff like that and get a better bandwidth, is that they are directional arrays, and that's why you'll make a circle of them instead of just this big omnidirectional 4G thing that just throws it out there. But yeah, it's like I'm super excited about 5G too, and it was just disheartening to just be like, what do my fellow Sioux Fallsians think of 5G? And it's just like, Obama's gonna mind control us with the 5G, and
when I'm looking into these technologies too, what I love about the technologies and specifically the software is all these new consumer softwares and how they integrate and connect to each other, and that, like, the software has never communicated with each other better than it has any other time. It's all very in tune. And it hasn't been easier. The APIs out there for all these companies for anybody to
As a guy who spends most of his day writing hooks for APIs, I will attest, yes, we're in a very, very interconnected time.
So, and one of the technologies that I think is completely undervalued right now, especially in Sioux Falls, when you talk about our issue with public transportation, I know that's been on the mayor's hit list to fix. There's Waze Carpool. It's an app that's out there. Just came out probably 4 months ago. Nobody knows about it. All we need to do is promote that. You get the community to take over. All of a sudden you have, that person that works at John Morrell's or Citibank or the hospitals that have, 4 empty seats in their car. If everyone's on that, well, heck, for $4 round trip, that's what it costs, for someone to utilize that app per day. That's less than owning that's less than owning a vehicle yourself.
Yeah.
And now you have an opportunity to pull people out of poverty because they can jump on an application and they can have a consistent ride to work. When you think about cars, people think that that's the key to financial freedom and being able to get to work and have flexibility to go where you need to go.
We keep edging
That's not
towards...
it. It's more, you just need to keep your job.
Exactly.
If you have reliable transportation, that doesn't mean it has to be a car.
Yep.
You can keep your job. You can keep going.
I was excited when Lyft talked about starting a subscription service, because with my eyes, I do not like driving after dark. And then I don't like driving in general, basically. And I'm just like, I would so much rather, like, between the insurance payments and the upkeep and everything else on cars, it's just like, if the needle ever hit where it was like the exact same price to have a subscription to Lyft where someone's just going to pick me up when I need it, meets that I own my own car threshold, it's like at some point there I'm going to be like, deal, and then just going to sell the car or keep one around so that I can make my long trips out to see family out in the country or whatever. But otherwise, with me being a commuter, I'm just kind of like, God, I'd love that, to not have to drive.
Yeah, and now that I was kind of thinking about it, is if you could create a crowdsourced like bus route type system, because obviously the bus routes are where there are because those are routes that are needed. But if you had some more centralized meeting locations that people could walk, 5 or 6 blocks to, or even a mile to. I mean, a mile walk, that's, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. But then you could have Lyft drivers or whatever pick up along these routes, as a way of public transportation, as opposed to how the bus system works, where they're stopping and their route's consistent. Well, now you can use this technology to aggregate, okay, what is actually the most popular stops in a sense.
Yeah. And then big data takes over, and then it's just like, oh wow, we can make this much more efficient. And I think that's where they'll start when they get into the like self-driving vehicles on a more massive like deployment across the country, is that you won't see it like everybody just shows up with a self-driving car. It will just be, it'll be the Lyfts and the Ubers show up with like a pilot program where they have a bunch of self-driving cars in an area that are going to like run routes, so then eventually your public transportation will go that way, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's an exciting time we live in, both scary, but a lot of exciting, and I think people underestimate the awesome parts that come with moving forward.
Gotta embrace change. That's
because it's going to happen whether you embrace it or not, so you might as well.
Exactly. You take it from me, you'd rather be on the inside, looking outside, than being confused and frustrated and scared. Yeah.
The Sioux Empire Podcast proudly presents this week's Shameless Plugs.
So Jordan, this is the part of the show where you get up on a soapbox and you tell us where can people, like any social media you want to promote, what's your website, who should get a hold of you, when, how, feel free to let the audience know.
Fantastic. So you can find me at consultantsinabox.com. I'm on Facebook. Same thing, facebook.com/consultantsinAbox. And I do have a business LinkedIn page. So all of it is a little fresh, but the website's up and running. You can kind of see what services that I offer and I consult on most. Good customers or good people for me to speak to is, if that person who's maybe just started their business, or that person who is, I got to add 1 employee, or wants to add a second location. Those are all perfect people for me to talk to. So, or really anyone, because my time is free. So I like to say, for businesses big and small, I do the research so you don't have to.
Nice. So very cool. Seth, do you have any shameless plugs this week?
I would like to shamelessly plug my friends and family again. Thanks for being awesome. Love ya. Sioux Empire Podcast Network, all the peeps on the team, and all the listeners. Thanks everybody for listening, continuing to listen in 2019, and thanks for listening to my new segment, It's Game Time, or Game Over, or whatever Rob wants to call it. What about you, Rob? What do you got?
Let's see. This week I will be shamelessly plugging that, we record this episode in advance here, but when this is coming out is right about the time we will be starting our casting call for voice actors. You'll want to go to the SiouxEmpire.com or go to our social, like our Facebook page, and I'll probably be posting more about what specific roles we're looking for. I know when we mentioned that we were going to do this for Edge Case, this is not Edge Case, this is a completely different project where we're looking for voice actors. I know when I posted that last time, it went nuts and my inbox exploded. So giving you specific instructions to go to the website or go to the social media post. All the information will be there to finally get some auditions going for a new project that has kind of come up that's not even related to Edge Case, which will also probably be starting casting here shortly. So yeah, please stay tuned to our social media to find out about chances to be involved in that. And then, as always, please help support the Sioux Empire Podcast and the work we do to bring you original local content and voices. You can do that at patreon.com/Sioux Falls. And then, as always, we give a shout out to patron Matt Paulson. Big thank you to him for supporting the podcast. SuperCon, as always, is our favorite big nerd nonprofit fest that we love to promote. You can check out all of our podcasts stream live also at, or not live, but they stream at Live 605. And yeah, thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you, Jordan, for being on. Thank you, Seth. And we will see you all next week.
Have a great week.